We're back.
I know you
We're
guys
at it
something at
again.
10, so we'll
Yeah,
it won't be anything super long.
we got 30 minutes. We got time.
We got time.
We got time.
Anything you want to talk about, Austin?
Oh, you know what? So I've been watching a lot of TV.
Yeah.
Not really a lot of movies, but one of the shows I don't think we've talked about before, but I recently watched the first season of. I haven't watched the second season yet, even though it just came out a couple of weeks ago,
Mhm.
which is Painting with John. Have you seen
Oh
the
yeah.
show?
No, I've heard of it though.
You should watch it. It's kind of like How to with John Wilson,
Mhm.
but I don't know. It's a very strange show. Like the fact that it exists makes me really happy because it's very clear John was just like given a camera and he lives like in some like little tiny tropical country.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
it's like him and like a crew of like three people, like with like a camera and a microphone, and like that's it. And it's just such a bewildering show. Like there's no like plot or logic to it. It feels like a painting in a lot of ways. Like there'll just be like these long, drawn out scenes that are like 10 to 15 minutes long where he's just painting because he's like a professional painter now, a pretty good painter too. And he'll just like talk about things that have happened in his life because he's,
Mhm.
this actor who's been in a shit ton of movies and he used to be like super famous and all this shit. And there's something really hypnotizing about it. I watched the whole first 6 episodes, which is the first season,
Mhm.
like in one sitting. Like I just sat down and watched the whole thing. And it's not even that like I wouldn't describe it as a super entertaining show. Like it's certainly not as funny or creative as like How to with John Wilson or Nathan for You. But there's this sort of strange, surreal aspect to just the whole thing and the way it's shot. And he'll do like this hand-drawn animations that will be like laid on top of like just like a real world image or real world images.
Mhm.
And it's so just weird. Emily watched the first episode with me. It's kind of funny. Like it's funny at times and there's like jokes, but it's
Yeah.
very dry.
It's like a podcast or something like that.
Kind of. But I mean, it's like visually stimulating. Like it's, I
Interesting.
don't know. There's not like a good show to really compare it to. I compare it to like How To with John Wilson just because there's kind of like this vibe of like it's a very kind of small crew, independent, just give a guy a camera and just kind of like do his own shit. But it's bizarre. And it's very clear that HBO literally just was like, give him a camera and it's like, do whatever the fuck you want, which is great. I mean, you don't see that a lot. And there's a lot of just creativity and just a lot of time spent just like doing weird shit. I don't know. And in a lot of ways, there's this joke that runs the whole first season, which is trying to learn how to fly a drone.
Mhm.
And so at the beginning of each episode, like it's supposed to be like this like cool like overlay of like a drone going over like a forest or whatever.
Mhm.
But at every episode, he like immediately crashes the drone. It's it's spectacular. I
Hmm.
think
I might watch
they're
it. That
really
sounds.
short. Yeah, they're really short episodes. I think they're only like 20 minutes, and they're like I said, they're easy watches. Um, Definitely something you can just like turn on, and kind of just like do other shit while you're doing it.
There's a one from 1991 called Fishing with John.
You think it's? Have you seen that? It's probably similar. I bet.
I haven't seen it.
It's just it's a really strange show,
Yeah.
but it's definitely worth the watch.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I might watch it. John Lurie, interesting guy.
Sure is.
Actor, musician, painter, just kind of all of
Does it
that
all.
stuff. Yeah.
And
Interesting.
that's like Painting with John. Like he does all of it. Like he writes all the music.
Hmm.
He basically has the camera the whole time. He writes everything. He paints. It's just weird.
What's the
Man.
music like? Is it like jazz music or something? I know he's a jazz
It's
musician.
it's kind of like this folky, like a folk jazz kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
it has like a lot of like, it has like his nice like deep, growly kind of voice,
Mm-hmm.
but then there will be like a lot of like brass instruments like trumpets and saxophones and that kind of thing.
Okay.
It's weird, but it's good. It's definitely worth the watch.
I should watch it. Yeah.
Should. Yeah. What
I
have you been watching?
I do watch a little bit of a show this past week or so.
No.
I watched a chunk of it. I watched a bunch of Mr. Show.
Mr. Show.
That is a sketch comedy show starring Bob Odenkirk and David Cross on HBO. That was
Okay.
kind of like their big break, sort of. I'm a fan of Tim Heidecker, and I'll occasionally watch his Office Hour show, which is basically his talk show that he does every other week.
Yeah.
And he had Bob Odenkirk on, which was a good episode. Of course, Bob Odenkirk, hugely instrumental in the break for Tim and Eric and Tim Heidecker. So obviously like a very influential person for Tim, artistically and also just kind of like literally.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I like Bob Odenkirk a lot. He's super funny, but I've never watched like Mr. Show before. And I've watched like a chunk of it, like quite a few episodes, like I'm season 2 or 3 or something like that.
Okay.
And it's very good. It's very, very funny. It's one of those really good sketch comedy. I like a good sketch comedy show. And it's one of those sketch comedy shows where the sketches flow into each other. So it's not like there's a sketch and they cut.
Mm-hmm.
They flow. They like lead into one another. And like the show, of course, is constantly like commenting on itself and is very like self-aware about like how stupid some of the sketches are. Like they'll have a sketch and they'll like make a joke about how like dumb the sketch is. And David Cross and Bob Odenkirk, they play like a lot of characters in the show, and they're very good actors and they're very funny. I was also completely like fascinated of how many like famous people are in the show, in the cast, and also that make appearances. Tom Kenny is one of the like main guys in the show who's most known for voicing SpongeBob SquarePants.
That's so strange.
So he's like in the show and he, like I said, he plays like a main guy. So it's kind of weird to see him like act in this show where he's like cursing and stuff.
That's got to be just the strangest.
And like it are very, very young performances too from Sarah Silverman, Paul F. Tompkins, and Jack Black. Jack Black is in it and he looks very young. He's very young in the show. Scott Ackerman and also Dino Stanatopoulos. He is also in the show as well. Just like a really weird, like, mishmash of like a bunch of like really great alternative comedians who would go on to have their own shows and like become extremely famous themselves. But ultimately, like Odenkirk and Cross are really fucking funny in it. And they're just they're very, very confrontational about like the modern world and like of the United States, and it's a very well done show. Once you get into the second season too, they play a lot with like kind of like the format where they'll do like a fake movie trailer and it looks like an actual movie trailer, because now they have like more money than they did the first season. So in the second season, like they kind of are able to make more pre-tape stuff that looks really good. It's or they'll make like a music video that looks like a music video. I'm very impressed with it. It's a very impressive and very funny show. It's good. It's very solid. Yeah, it's good.
It's awesome. We'll put it on the list. That looks like a really good time. I mean, that just looks fun.
It's really fun. Very fun. Good cast. Just it's really solid. Very good. Yeah.
Speaking of David Cross, Emily, so something Emily likes to do probably once a year is we'll turn on Arrested Development, just because that's a great show. It's just one of the greats. And so we watched so like we were cooking dinner or whatever, and we watched the first episode, which I've probably now seen
Oh yeah,
like
I've seen that
6 or
like a handful of
17. Like
times
I've
as
seen
well.
seen it
Yeah,
so
yeah.
many times now.
Yeah, it's a
And
great
every
show.
time I'm just I'm disappointed by all other television because the rest of
It's such a good
development
show.
is just so fucking good. It's so incredible.
It's a great show.
So funny. It's so well written. Everyone in it is absolutely spectacular. I mean, of course, it's like this cast that would go on to be like, super famous and all do like their own shit. Will Arnett, Portia, all of them. Just if David Cross, of course. It's just great. Did you ever watch the 2 new seasons of Arrested
I
Development?
told you about that. In 2020,
Yeah.
like we watched, all we re I well, my partner and like they watched it for the first time and
Mhm.
I watched it again, all the way through
Yeah,
again.
yeah,
And of
yeah.
course, it's still a great show. But we started watching the new seasons and there was just something about it. I know you have said, like, oh, it's good, it's good, it's good. But for us, for me, when it comes to TV, if it doesn't grab me right away, if like a new season or a show doesn't like really like stick with me all that much, I don't see a reason to waste my time on it. So we
Yeah,
tried, but I just couldn't watch it. It just didn't feel good. It didn't feel
that's right.
right.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, the
Yeah.
original stuff is so good. And yeah,
So
it still
good.
makes me laugh.
Oh, yeah. And that's right. We talked about this because I remember when you watched it, they ended up re-editing
Yeah.
that season, which because I saw it before because for some reason they released it and for like a year, like the new Netflix season, and I had
Yeah.
watched it originally by myself, and I was like, this is not very good, and then they re-edited it, so they didn't shoot anything
Yeah.
new. The guy was just like, I did not have enough time to like do this, and I wasn't given the time, and so they re-released it on Netflix, and it's like I said, it's much better than what it was originally. But that season as a whole, like it probably is the weakest season. They did one season after it, which is like the final season, which it was clear like because the problem with like the first Netflix season is like they really couldn't get like everyone together very often because they were, they had a bunch of shit going on because like these really famous people now. But for the final season, like they really did get everyone together,
Mhm.
and it's a nice it's a nice ending to the show. Like it all ends like you're like okay, like it feels good. But you're right. I mean, those original seasons are just I mean, they're just some of the best seasons of television of all time. So you're never really gonna beat it. I mean, it's just so good.
Yeah.
It's just so
Also,
good.
I will say unrelated. Fishing with John, which was the show he had in the 90s, 6
Mm-hmm.
episodes. That's on Criterion. You should watch that.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like I guess him going fishing with Jim Jarmusch, Tom Waits, Matt Dillon, William Dafoe, Dennis Hopper. It's like 6
Awesome.
episodes. So, I mean, if you like Painting with John, I mean, I'm guessing you're gonna like this, and it's on Criterion. So, just want to put that out
Yeah,
there for you.
I'll watch that. That'd be a good time. I'll have to put on my list of many, many things to watch,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is just it's never ending, especially because like Emily, like we'll be like I said, we're watching Samurai Jack, which I can never say enough stuff about, especially
yeah.
like the second season, they really dip into this sort of like body horror. I mean, there's like episodes where like they're
That's
ripping off
cool.
people's faces.
Yeah, that's awesome.
They're fucking like cutting like legs and arms off. It's so fucking violent. And if I had really like watched much of the show this kid as a kid, I would have had nightmares for life because I guess they get away with it because they're like robots. But I mean, like in the last episode we watched, he's like a chicken because he's like turned into a chicken for some reason.
Yeah, yeah.
And he fights like this weird possum rat creature. And then he like puts like an acid on it and you watch it like melt. Like you see like its skin. Like it honestly looks like that scene out of like RoboCop where the guy, you know what I'm talking about? Where like the
Yeah,
guy's like face like melts.
yeah.
It looks like that. It's like weird and terrifying and just so strange. And I can never say enough about Samurai Jack. We're on season 3, so we're almost to the new season. We're not there yet. But the reason we're not there is because like every time Emily starts a show, like halfway through, we like start a different show. So we started
Yeah.
watching Under the Banner of Heaven, which it's one of those shows where they don't release all the episodes at once, which always pisses me off.
Mhm.
So like we only watched the first 3 episodes, but it's Andrew Garfield. Do you know what this is about? It's based
Oh,
off a
it's the
book
John
written
Krakauer
by
book. Yeah,
it's the
yeah,
John
yeah.
Krakauer book. Yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
forgot.
about
Yeah.
like Mormons, but these Mormons
Yeah.
are like evil or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like your prototypical kind of like cop drama, kind of like, FBI kind of shit. Um, Andrew Garfield's great in it. He plays a very believable Mormon, if you can if you can believe it. But the show's fine. I mean, there's nothing spectacular about it. It's enjoyable. Andrew Garfield's always a good time to watch, and
Mhm.
he's enjoyable, and that's good. And then Emily watched the first episode of The Staircase, which I did not watch with her, because I didn't care about the documentary, so I'm not going to care about the fucking TV series based
Yeah.
off of the document. Like, whatever. I mean, people, do whatever you want, but no
Yeah.
interest in that. And then we also watched the entire season of The Pentaveret, which is Mike Myers. It's basically just Austin Powers. Like Mike Myers just like wrote and acts in just like a silly, very spoofy kind of
Uh-huh.
Netflix original series. It's like I said, it's basically just watching Austin Powers. Like it's the exact same kind of jokes. They joke about Canada. They have like,
Okay.
a couple of like sex jokes and some jokes about Netflix. And, it's, again, it's just one of those shows where you like turn on and it's just like, it's fine. They do this fun thing where everything they shoot in Canada, they shoot in a 4:3 aspect ratio and like this really grainy, like 1980s look, which
Okay.
is fun. And like the best episode's probably the first episode because like Mike Myers just plays like this very Canadian reporter,
Yeah.
and he's just like out doing like going on like Canadian trips and being very Canadian, and everyone has like this super
Hmm.
like obviously overly done like Canadian accent where they're like a boot and
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
that. But uh I wouldn't say it's worth to watch, but we did watch it, the whole
Mhm.
thing. It's whatever. I mean, there's nothing exciting about it. It's just like it's literally the exact same as every other Mike Myers project, just like the same jokes, the same kind of thing. And he's fun, but it's very clear like I like Mike Myers, but it's very clear it's like a show made by an old man
Yeah.
who is like trying to be in touch with the world. And a lot of the time it just feels a little cringy. Like I don't use that word
Mhm.
very often, but like it feels uncomfortable. Like they make a Shrek joke, which I get like
Mm.
fucking people and
Okay.
fucking Shrek, but it's just like it feels a lot of the jokes, like unlike Austin Powers, which is like I'm not a huge fan of Austin Powers, as we've talked about before, but like it feels very of the moment and the music is great, but like this feels it feels out of touch a bit with reality. Like, when he makes jokes that are just like Mike Myers jokes, I think those are like the best jokes because it's just like
Yeah.
him being himself. But whenever, like, anytime he tries to like be in touch with like the modern, with like the youths,
Yeah.
it makes me feel uncomfortable. Like, it's not only is it not funny, it's just like awkward is the best way to put it. But we watched it anyways. We watched the whole season. There's not gonna be another season, but we watched it, and it was something.
Yeah. No. Interesting.